Alrighty, here's take 3. I think I found a cheap project I could get going on this thing today. Why does everything look upside down? Alrighty, take 4. So I think I finally found a cheap project I could do on this thing that's not going to take me hopefully more than 20 bucks to do. I'm going to start out cheap with it, do what I can, and then it'll be a progression upgrade from there. And hopefully I don't have any more problems, because the first thing this morning, I actually noticed this before, but it seems like every time I check my engine oil, it seems like there's a little bit of milky water in there. So long story short, I dumped the engine oil out. I can't find anything in there. Poured the oil back in, and I think there might be just moisture in the dipstick tube. So every time I pull that thing out, it drags a little bit of that out. And couldn't find anything inside the oil. So my project for today is I'm going to take and convert this thing over to an air compressor. I use an air compressor a lot for letting the air out of the tires, going out to the sand dunes and whatnot, and I need a way to air them back up. I've never done this before, so this will be my first attempt. I have watched several videos. There's 3 or 4 different ways of doing it. Like I said, I'll probably go the cheaper route with what I have, and then I could build from there and hopefully make it into a better system later. So the first thing that we'll probably do is we'll probably check to see if this clutch even works, and then we'll check to see if the air compressor works, if it's pushing out air, and if it is, then we'll probably be pulling it off, and we'll try to figure out what we're going to do with the oiling system, grease, oil, or how we're going to do that. This thing I've had for a couple years, and I don't know how long they've been disconnected before that, but these both these tubes were disconnected. There was nothing here, unfortunately. So who knows if there's crap in here, or water, or whatever else. But yeah, we'll get started with that. I'll grab a wire and we'll check to see if this clutch is going, and then we'll fire up the Jeep and check this compressor to see if it's compressing air, and then we'll get it off of there. So that'll be just a second. Grab a light. So first thing is finding the wire here, which surprisingly is still plugged in. This is just a single wire. I've heard that if there's more than one wire coming out to this plug here, you want to make sure that you plug into the right wire to check power, or you'll burn this clutch up if you don't. So I'm just going to take a jumper wire here, try to push down into there, and then I'm just going to take and hit it on the battery here. You can hear it clicking. So it appears that the clutch is working. So I'm going to go start it. We'll engage that clutch and we'll see if we've got air coming out the back there, and which port it's coming out of. Okay, hopefully you can still hear me. We're going to engage the clutch back here. See this top one, get air pressure out of it. So all that's working, and it seems to be pushing out a lot more air than what I thought it was going to back there from what I've heard on some of the videos. So Oh no. Hopefully this compressor works good for me. So the next thing is I'm gonna grab some tools, and I guess I'll have to loosen up the power steering to get this belt off, and then we'll pull this pump off, and we'll figure out what we're gonna do with it from there. So I'm gonna cut this out, and I'll be back with some tools for that. All right, so I always forget how to do this. I've only done it a couple times. I've replaced the belt once, and then, which is funny because it is squeaking now. And then after that, I ended up replacing the water pump and tensioner. And but I always end up loosening up too much stuff, I think. But I think it's this bolt here you gotta loosen up, and maybe this one. And then it's hard to see down there, but down there is a tensioner bolt, and you just back that off, and that should loosen this belt up. So ½ inch. Okay, so I got it loose. I don't know if I'm able to show this very well, but it was this bolt here, and then down there, well, you can see, kind of see where the wrench is going. If I get this light in there. So the wrench is going to the tensioner, and then that bracket also has a bolt that I believe needs to be, yeah, in fact I can see it now. There's a bolt going through the front of that bracket where the ratchet is that needs to be loosened up as well. So I finally might go a little bit looser and I get that belt off of there. So I have heard that these bolts like to break off. I know that I've already had these out when I did the water pump and the headers and all that stuff. I had all this apart, so I shouldn't have any problems, but that'd be something that you might run into, is these bolts breaking off. If you're, I guess, in an area where you get a lot of rust and corrosion. Of course, I'm on the Oregon coast, so you'd think I would have it in here too, but luckily the last time these things came out just fine. So and there it is. All right, so here it is on the bench, and like I said, I'll probably do the cheap way on this, and then if it lasts and I get money down the road, I could upgrade and do different things down the road. There's probably I don't know, 4 or 5 different ways of doing this. I've heard of people just throwing their lines up to it and running it the way it is. I've heard of people taking and just dumping oil in here and hooking your line up and going. And then there's actual oilers. I don't know what those look like. I haven't researched them at all. I'm sure there's some special ones, but I'm sure they're oilers, kind of like what I have here. Of course, I have my water catch, and then regulator water, and then I have This here has oil in it. This is supposed to put oil into my air system. If I have it hooked up on this side, I have this line here. Probably isn't doing very well the way it's kinked, but I have this line here. When I do paint, I don't have oil going into the paint. So I don't know what a system like that costs to hook up to one of these. Like I said, I haven't looked into it. And then there's people that take them apart and put grease in them, which is probably the way that I'm gonna go. And then there might be some people out there that have actually taken and made them put like drain plugs, which this is what I was actually wanting to do, was put a drain plug in here and a fill plug, which it already has a plug here. You can put oil in it and then just keep oil in it like what it has in it now. My problem with that is if I'm gonna do that, there's really no reason to put a drain plug in it, because unless you make some kind of fancy hose or tube coming out of the bottom of it, because once this thing's mounted, you can't get to the bottom of it because it sits, well, unless you could put a hole in this bracket, which I suppose you might be able to do. I don't know. You might be able to put something in there, but that thing sits down on there, and I don't see any way of, you might as well just pull it off and pull it apart and clean it and do the oil in it. So, like I said, I think I'm just gonna take it apart and just do the grease. Try that for now, and I will have to go get some parts to do that, but it shouldn't cost, I wouldn't think, too much for what I need. So start tearing into it. And then, oh yeah, it's full of, I don't know if you can see that, but it's full of gunk. Like I said, I don't know how long this has been sitting with no hoses on it, so it might be full of garbage anyways. It's definitely got some sand and dirt in there. No ring. I think these are pinned, but I'm gonna mark them anyways. All the bolts look to be the same length. Oh. I really don't know what any of this is supposed to look like, but I did hear there's a gasket in here somewhere that you don't want to tear if you don't have to. I think that had to come off there for this to come out, but maybe it did. Whoop. Something happened. Get a scraper. Take a thin scraper and see if I can get up underneath all of this and hopefully not tear any of it. It's like it's popping up. Dowel pin there. Come on. Oh yeah, that's had some junk in it, some rust, a little dirty. That door being open back there is killing me. That better? It's still open, but so this has definitely got some junk in two of those pistons. So the one thing that I don't have is it looks like this hole here is the hole that everybody takes and taps out and then puts a plug in there, 1/4x20 plug. Then you cap that off and it keeps the oil or grease or whatever you put in here from coming out and going into your lines and into the rest of your system. Which if there's a way to put a little bit of air tool oil in there and keep it in there, I guess that's what the oiler's for. But I'm not putting one of those on there, so I'm gonna have to clean this up and figure out how I'm gonna do that. Now I gotta get the other side apart. They say if you use grease in here, you wanna use some kind of a high temp grease, because it gets hot. In fact, the inlet or the outlet, when we get to that point of figuring out how we're going to connect our air hose to it, they say that you don't want your hose too close to the compressor because it gets so hot that it'll burn your hose up and you'll be having to fix the hose all the time. So I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do there and what I'm going to do there, because I'm not going to buy any special fancy fittings or braided hose like some people. They'll put the like AN fittings or whatever in there with the braided hose, which is cool. Looks cool, probably makes it look nice, but well, looks like that's been I don't know if it's just gunk in there or what, but it almost looks like it's been ran hot. It's kind of black in there on some of this stuff. Or if just the oil's just dirty, old, I don't know. That's how it come out of there. Pretty black looking. I'll probably clean all that up, and bearing looks all right. And there's supposed to be another like thrust washer here that I think might come off. Not sure. That's what spins when your belt spins, and then it pushes all these pistons around as it goes around. So one thing I'm not sure about is I'm going to pull this out of here. I know I've heard it's a pain in the butt to put back in. Oh, and that, I don't know if it matters But I think you'd want those pistons back in the holes they came out of. So I'm going to try to mark this so I can try to get it back in the same spot. Which my dot's here from when I took it apart earlier, so. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to mark that. Put a paint mark on there and it's just going to come off when I clean it. Maybe if I see if I put a little scratch mark in here. Nope. Yeah, those are all gummed up. I just took and put a scratch mark here and here. So my dot goes back in between here. I don't think that's gonna hurt anything where I put it, so. Oh, and then there's a ball bearing in here that might come out. And I thought there was this piece in here also comes out. And then there's a spring in there. I didn't know the spring was in there. And there's a keyway that should come out. Keyway come out of there. Huh. Yep, well, I guess we'll take this over to the parts washer, and I'll probably wash all this up in the parts washer and come back to putting it back together. All right, I'm gonna have to change that battery. Well, I have the parts all cleaned up. I would say one thing, if you ever do this and you have a pump that's been exposed like this one has, or if you go to a junkyard and you grab one and you don't know much about it, I don't think I damaged anything in this, but it might be a good idea to go ahead and tear it apart first. Some of this stuff looked like it might have been stuck pretty good. It had some rust in it, water in it, and sand in it, and might have been better to clean all that out before you fired it up to see if it would work. It's not too hard to tear apart and check, so. Well, I think I'm going to change the battery, grab some more coffee, and then we'll probably start looking at this thing a little bit better and maybe putting it back together. So I'll be right back. All right, Well, I'm back. I only went for coffee and to replace the battery in the GoPro. I decided that if I was going to start putting this thing back together, there were some parts that I needed. And then, of course, I ended up getting the wrong parts anyway, so now I don't know what I'm going to do. This hole here is one that they say you need to plug off if you're going to put grease inside of here. And I didn't pay any attention, and I couldn't remember what size it was. I assumed it was supposed to be a pipe plug. And so I assumed it was an 1/8 inch pipe plug. So I searched all over town trying to find an Allen pipe plug that will go in there and fit flush in there, because it has to be flush mounted, because when this goes back on there, it's going to cover that up. Come to find out, it's not a pipe plug. It's actually 1/4 by 20, just a 1/4 by 20 plug. I don't know what they call it. Basically, it's a set screw is what they're putting in there. And I don't think I have any set screws. I've thought about just sticking that in there and just cutting it off, but then if I want to later pull that out of there, I'm not going to have a way to do it. So I might try one thing. These are out of a kit that I got from Harbor Freight a while ago, and it's 1/4 by 20. And I might try to cut the head off of this and just put a slice in it so I can put it in with a flathead screwdriver and see if that will work, and take my pipe plug back, since I don't need it. Not that it was, I think it was only like $2 or something. If I'd known that, I probably wouldn't have went looking for all that stuff though. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm gonna cut this off, see if I have a blade thin enough to slice the top of that, and see if we can get it put in there. I'm gonna have to put that in the vise. So here's the kit that I bought a while ago. Actually, that's not the kit with these screws. This kit here is the kit with the screws in it, but this kit has nuts in it. I'm gonna screw a couple nuts on here. See if I clamp this down the vise and cut just the head of this bolt off. Wasn't cut quite level. Now I'm going to see if I can take and just put a screwdriver mark in here. Which, as hard as that was to cut, Alright, so I'm back, and the air compressor finally shut off. Here's what I did was I just took that screw, cut the head of it off, and then I ended up using a die grinder and cutting a groove in there, which is hopefully enough for me to put this in and take it out later if I need to. I don't think I'm gonna ever have to take this back out, but clean up the rough edges on this. It's probably too long too. I don't know how long it needs to be. Well, I think the one in the video I watched, it was only a 1/4 inch, and this is way more than a 1/4 inch. But I think I can make it go in there. Try to get the edges broke off where it was cut, and that way that doesn't give me any problems going in there and hanging up. So I have an old Harbor Freight. I've had this for years and I've barely used it. So I'm just going to throw a little bit of this tape on there. I don't think it's going to matter too much if a little bit does get back into the other side of the system, but for the most part this should hold it out. There you go. It's in there and it's tight. If you don't want to go and find one of those plugs, or you can't find one 1/4 by 20 by 1/4, then you can make your own. Now I gotta remember, oh, so I don't know, there's another thing I'm not sure is about putting a, I don't know if I want to, I don't know what that plug's made out of. Is putting a grease zerk in here to be able to add a little bit of grease. I have some old grease zerks. I don't know what it would hurt to add one in there. I don't know how hard that plug is right there. If I could put one right in that plug, and then it'd have to be 90 degree. I think I have some 90s or 45s to be able to get to it. This must be where you add the oil. When you put oil in these things. It's gonna be pretty tight. Pretty tight trying to get the greaser I have in there. All right. So I decided not to do the grease zerk. It'd probably be nice, but if I really need to put grease in it, I could just take this out and use a needle zerk and put some in there. I didn't want to deal with putting one in there and then having it stick out into here and then having this wanting to run into it and having to grind it down flush and mess around with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and start putting this thing back together. So this is the grease I'm using, just high temp disc brake wheel bearing grease. I'm sure there's better stuff to use. This is what I have. So I'm throwing grease down inside this big hole here. I'll probably use, I'm sure, too much. That goes in there. And then this thing goes down in there with a keyway. And then the spring went in there. I guess probably the best way to do that is to put the spring in there. We'll put a little bit of grease in this keyway. So hopefully it holds the keyway in while I'm trying to get it back together. I don't know if there's a right way to do this other than put some grease on it. I'm sure when it gets hot, it'll probably spread the grease around the places that it needs it. And I don't know if there's too much or not enough you can do. So I'll probably just stick that so that spring don't fall out of there and just stick it up into that hole and try to get the keyway lined up. So now it's back in there. And this ball goes back in here. I'm not sure. These pistons, I might put oil in the holes in there to start with. Just a thin film. Just going to use some old engine oil. To put on these pistons. And I suppose you should get some kind of grease around the ball there and the ball up in here. I don't know, I'm just making stuff up now. Like I said, I've never done this before. Once it gets used and heated up, I'm sure that grease is going to go wherever it wants to go. And as much oil, I don't think it takes much oil to go in these compressors. And then comes up the fun part of trying to get it all back together, or get all these pistons back in the holes. And then I marked my marks there, and my marks are here. I think some of these are actually, especially that one's stiffer than what it probably should be. Might have to put this part on time lapse. Well, that wasn't too bad. It's back in there. I just kind of held down pressure and looked up in there and just kind of worked them around until they fell back in. And I have my marks in between, so they're back in the same holes that they were in. Yeah, it's moving around in there pretty good. I'm against the ball because it shot grease up right there in the center of that piece. That's where that ball is in there. Seems like there's a little... Oh yeah, there's another little shim piece in there. Maybe a thrust washer. Back in there, then the bearing. I don't know if it matters. I don't remember exactly which way that came out of there. Hopefully these roll the way they're supposed to with the grease in there. That could be probably a bad thing. I don't know. You know, say it could be a bad thing if you put grease and heavy grease in there, and it might stop those rollers from wanting to roll in there, put flat spots on them. But I'm loading her up heavy anyways. You actually don't. I actually don't see them rolling in there, so maybe when they get some. Huh. I don't know if I like that. More bearings down in there. I don't know how they got any grease into those. I guess this is going to be an experiment because I don't know. I guess people say it works, so. Uh-oh. Oh. Ooh, I think I got it in there. So see, I think that O-ring swelled up a little bit and it wasn't going to go back in there, but it's back in there. What else went back in there? I think everything else went back in the other side. Back together. Alrighty. So we got that all back together. Now we're back to this. So one thing that I noticed, and I noticed this when it was apart, and I wasn't sure if it was going to keep it in there or not, is this keyway, where that one shaft went through, the keyway comes all the way through. I noticed there's grease on this side. So I don't know, maybe this is something we should run for a little bit and then tear it apart and see what it looks like. But if we were worried about grease and oil coming back through here, there's another way right there. Through this plug here is just probably where they drilled it, and then they ran that keyway in there. And yeah, long story short, there's grease right there at that keyway. So it's not 100% sealed off if you think you do this and think it's 100% sealed off. So everything turns in there. All the pistons are going around. So the next thing I'm going to do is this thing here apparently got water in there and whatnot, and these are like your check valves or your valves to where it lets air in and then it closes to compress it. Well, I can see where these are kind of hanging up, sticking up just a little bit, and 2 of these had a bunch of rust and stuff in them, dirt and whatnot. So I'm going to pull this bolt out and see if I can clean that up. Maybe. Thought I had another. Oh, there's that piece. And there's actually another smaller one on this side. Which you could see might be able to see there's gunk there and there on those, so that could be holding it open. And there's definitely some rust and gunk on this side. The other thing that I heard was these, after a while, they're sitting there and opening and closing. If you get them cleaned up and put them on there and they don't look like they're flat all the way, I've heard that if you fold it back over, or if you flip it over, that will hold it down and work it the other direction. But I'll clean everything up and see what it looks like before I do that. A little brake clean, a little Scotch-Brite. Clean up that rusty, dirty areas. Probably don't have to be 100%, but we want it better than good enough that it's going to get us some good air pressure. Excited to see if this works. This is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And the Tacoma, I got an air compressor in it, but it's just a Vi-Air air compressor that I stuck underneath the engine, underneath the hood. I shoved it underneath the hood and strapped it down and hooked some hoses to it so I didn't have to mess with it all the time. I was kind of wondering what I was going to do with this. I actually had thought about taking the one out of the Tacoma and putting it in this, or making sure I got the Tacoma with me somehow when I go out. So that's definitely got some pitting, especially with the couple that were, I believe, rusted up and tore up. But I think they'll be a lot better than what they were. So hopefully, see, I think the two that were in question were there. I don't think it matters. I noticed there is one little hole right here. I didn't notice that earlier, and I don't see a spot on here where that hole is sitting, but I don't think it matters, other than this must have been going the other direction. I can't wait to move that thing out of the shop. So that was like that. Did I lose a washer or something? Why is there a big chrome spot right there? But I don't, unless it was where this was sitting. Maybe that's it. Okay. Yeah, I could see where this was sitting in there. Okay, and that looks, they all look like they're sitting fairly flat, so I'm not going to flip them over. At least on that side. This side's about the same. A little Scotch-Brite. Polish it up a little bit. Yeah, it looks a lot better. I don't think it matters which way that went. And this thing, this just must stop it from opening up too far. It only allows it to, this bottom plate to come up to a certain. So I'm just going to throw that back. It's got a lock washer. I'm just going to throw it back together with the lock washer and call her good. I don't know how you tell. Those are exactly where they're supposed to be. Yeah, I think that's how it was though. As long as nothing moves. It's closed back up. You can see these holes here, you can, where these big ones are, you don't see any light through them. And then these small ones, I guess you'd look through this side, you don't see any light through them. Cleaned up back together. These seals, shim seals, they're kind of a shim and a seal. Going to wipe it up and try to put it back where it matches. which should be no. Nope. Should be like that. The only reason why I know that was because there's a spot right there that I didn't get all the way clean. Well, that spot is this spot here. Plus there's dowels. So when I line up the dowels, and that area there lines up. So that's that side. Hopefully this side's the same way. It only goes one way. I don't know if any of this really matters that much. We're not building a spaceship. So there is kind of the same thing. There's notches here and here. One right here, one right here. Plus the dowel pins in it, it will only go one way. So now, this should only go on one way. Which I think is okay. You can kind of see, I don't know if it'll come up, but you can kind of see that mark right there, which is where I put that screw in there to block that off. So that's going to line up with that, plus into the dowels right on there. And then this side should be easy because I've marked it with a punch, which is right there, and lining up with the dowels right there. Make sure there's no extra parts. I'm running out of my card. Okay, not out of the woods yet. So now this thing sits like that on the Jeep. So down here, I think I have a good plan for it. I just so happen to have over here, I had it for quite a while, filter. I think I bought these off of Amazon. I bought 2 of them. I actually use this on a piece on my Tacoma. And there's the other. Oh no, I showed you that side of the package. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick it right on here like this. intake. 1-inch clamp-on breather. I don't know if the intake gets hot. The exhaust, they say, gets hot, so hopefully. Alright, well, my camera died at the end of me putting this filter on. Apparently it was too hot. So now, if my camera will stay on, we gotta figure out how to hook the hoses up to this, which I have some ideas. I'm not sure if I should put it back on. I should probably put it back on and then do my work on that. But my plans are using this fitting. I only need one now because of the air filter. And I have an old piece of pipe. I think I have an old piece of 1/4-inch pipe that I might be able to slide into here. And I'm thinking about either MIG welding it, TIG welding it. I'm not that great at TIG welding yet, but I might try to TIG weld it on there. And then it'll stick out there a ways. They say you want to get away from the compressor because it gets hot and it'll burn your hoses, so it's pretty long. And then I could adapt whatever adapters I want from there to make that work. So I'm probably going to clean this up. I'll grab the piece of pipe, clean it up, and figure out what I'm going to do there. I'll grab the pipe. So this is the old piece of pipe I had from somewhere. I might have had it from my air compressor when I was setting some stuff up on it. And it just so happens I think a 1/4-inch pipe will go in there. So I'm gonna clean this all up, and then I'll be back and I'll let the camera cool down a little bit longer. All right, so I'm back. I jumped forward just a little bit. I'm not the best TIG welder. I bought this welder here probably 5 years ago or so, and I've been teaching myself how to TIG weld. I decided to TIG weld this on, and I just don't do it every day. But it doesn't look too bad. It's on there. I had to take a file to it because I did it with this nut off, like that, and then I went to go put this on. Of course, it didn't, just barely fit. So I took a file and just filed the edges off. I suppose if I needed to, I shoved that pipe up in here at least over halfway. It covered all the threads plus a little bit. So hopefully I won't have any problems with it. If I have any problems with it, I could weld it again out here, or do something different. Hopefully it fits, because I really did test fit all this too much, so we don't want to forget. We got an O-ring, which was a pain to get off of here. It's really stuck on there. Some other O-rings, I don't know if they'll work or not. They might. And there's another one here. Don't want to forget. If it'll stay there. I guess it will slide on this piece. And hopefully go in there where it needs to go. So I go on there like that. One thing that I didn't think about, I was hoping to have this straight down, put that big filter there. I'm not going to have it that way. So I'll have to come out like this. Hopefully I didn't goof that up. I guess it's going on there. So my plan from here was I already had this swivel I've had for a while. I think I used it and then quit using it. It's been sitting in my drawer up there. So I'm trying to remember how I was going to do all this. So I went to Harbor Freight and I bought these fittings, which they were I guess these were 10 bucks. And then I went and got this lock-on chuck here, which is $5. And then this hose, 3/8 by 15 foot, was on sale. Normally it's $10. It was on sale for $7. So I have to be able to go from this to the hose. And then I had plans to put this on here. The reason why I put that, I don't even really probably need this on here, but I need a 90. So I don't know how long this will last. I actually have another one of these. I don't know how long it will last for, but hopefully it will last until I can buy a 90. That's the only reason why I'm using this, because I already have it. So I need to go to that. To the hose. I think this 15 foot is just long enough to go from the air compressor to this back tire. And there's not a lot of, it's pretty small, so should be able to shove it somewhere. My idea is to go to here, but I also wanted to take, and I bought a cap. I don't know what I paid for that. The cap was $3. So my idea with this is to cap one of these off. I hope that's the right thread. And then I won't leave the hose on there all the time. I'll probably just leave that hanging down, hopefully, and it'll be capped off and it won't get junk in there. So if I do that, then I could use one of these to go into here, and then I'll need this I guess I'll have to put this on here. This on here, this on here, and then I can put that in there. Which I ended up buying a coupler, and the coupler actually, this was $5 for this thing. And that's all I bought for this project. So I don't know what I have into it. Total. $4.99 plus I didn't use that. And there was $6.99, $4.99, $10.99. No, $9.99. A little more than what I wanted to spend, but I got 30 bucks into it. Which will, not including this filter, I already had it. That's just the stuff that I went and bought today. So if you don't have some of this stuff, it might cost you a little more just to get started. That go on there. That should go on there. We should have a system that will work. Start putting it back in the Jeep. Tightening things up. We'll see how it goes. I'm probably going to go ahead and just get this back in, get the belt and everything back in, skip that part, and then we'll go into tightening this stuff up and throwing it together. So, be right back. All right, well, I pretty much went ahead and just finished it off. I got my belt back on, tightened, tensioned. I went ahead and put my fittings in here. So I don't know if there's any good way of looking at it, but you see the air filters there, and then my outlet here, and it comes up to this 90 degree here, and then I have just something to keep the dirt out of there, water and stuff. And then I probably throw this in the cab under the back seat or something, but I have my hose here with my fittings on it, ready to go. So the only, oh, and then I went ahead and ran this wire. So I just cut the wire coming up to the air compressor, and I have a box of these things from Harbor Freight. I already had them to just clamp it to the battery, and that locks in that clutch when I need to. So this should be everything I need to make this system work. The only problem with the system that I have now, and I don't know what would really happen, especially since everything I have on here is sealed up pretty good. I don't have any push-on hoses. My hoses are crimped, and everything's sealed up. So as of right now, until I buy some T's and some other parts, there is no pressure regulator on here, and there is no blow-off valve. So if you turn this thing on and just let her go, I don't know if that thing will blow itself up and explode or what it would do. So you don't want to, they actually recommend, if you run it this way, that your chuck on this end, and I don't know where you get them from, but they have some chucks that they won't hold pressure. If you have it hooked up just like this and you have the air compressor running, it will allow air to blow out of this. And that's what you should have in this system the way I have it. So to be able to do this correctly, you actually have to take and hook everything up, hook it up to the tire before you start the engine, and plug this in. So I'm curious to see what it will do. I might have to set this camera up on a time lapse. I'm gonna go ahead and let the air out of this tire, hook that thing up, and we'll time it and see how long it takes to air it back up. I don't normally I normally go down, normally not much more than about 8 to 10 psi, and then I normally run everything up close to about 30. So, but we'll let a bunch of air out. I'll pull the valve stem out, let a bunch of air out, and then we'll see how long it takes or what it takes to air it back up. Well, I think that was pretty good. I was actually impressed at how fast it picked that tire up. But from 0 to, I don't know if it's really going to pick that up. 0 to 32 psi, I went a little bit higher, checking it. That's with me checking it about 5 times too. But about 3 minutes to air up this tire. 35, 12, 50, 15. That's actually pretty quick, I think. So that might be better than my Viair that's, I don't remember what model it is, but it's designed to, supposed to be for 35-inch tires. So, yeah, I'm gonna like this. It seems to be working pretty good. I think it's noisy, but I think it's noisy because it's got that open filter there now. So, sounds like an air compressor actually, so. Yeah, let's see. And it's a little warm for, I could hold my hand on everything, but it's a little warm. I don't know. I don't know if you should take breaks in between tires or do a couple tires and let her cool off. I imagine the fan's right here, so the fan should help it cool off some. So, and this thing took me way longer than what I thought it was going to. It was almost an all-day project, but that was looking for parts, and it's the first time I'd done it, so I didn't know what I was doing anyways. But I think I'm done for the day. I think I'm gonna wrap that hose up and probably start downloading some stuff. And hopefully this turned out halfway as decent. So, alrighty, well, stuck around this long. Thanks for watching. I tried to make a good video, tried to get it done. I'm pretty excited myself because I finally did it. And I'm gonna oh, another thing, I don't know, but this 15-foot hose, that thing swiveled over the top, and 15-foot hose, perfect. You might have a little bit extra. At least you're not cold on stuff. 15-foot hose, Harbor Freight. I think I got it for $7 on sale. And it's pretty heavy duty. Kind of get away from those bungee, the yellow. In my pickup, I have those yellow hoses, which they work. I've had them in there for a long time, but sometimes they're a pain. So, yeah, that worked out pretty good too. All right, well, until I can find something to do the next time, I'm out of here.